Okay, so here we are, week 3, kind of little mini-series. We've just been looking at this idea of love. And today I want to just talk about the idea that we love to the ends of the earth, Eastbourne and beyond. You know, we kind of started from rooting out of a love for Jesus. I just daily have a love for Christ in all that I do. That's the beating heart of the Christian life. It's who I am. It's how my life is structured. The metronome of all that I do is out of a relationship with Him and a love for Christ. It's the audience of one. I give myself to Him and Him alone. And then this idea that once I have a healthy beating heart, right in the center of my chest, it then sends life-giving power in the bloods around all of the body to every part, everywhere. All of the body is blessed as a result of the beating heart that sends out the life-giving power of the blood of Christ in all that we do. See, I step into every circumstance and situation, and as I do those things, I bring something of myself and my love for Jesus and His love for me to everyone that I meet and everywhere that I go. And so in this final week, we're going to explore this idea that once we have healthy, life-giving bodies, once the church, we're a healthy community in which we love one another as a family, once we're a healthy community in which we love one another, once we've learned what it means to love what is close and to submit to one another and to serve one another and to care for one another and to, forgive one another for our flaws and our mistakes and to deeply be committed to one another, once we get to that point, ultimately, healthy bodies, and not just then about just, hey, isn't it great? I've got a healthy body. Look how good it looks. It's not just like I can post nice Instagram pics of how good my body's now looking. A healthy body, just for what it looks like, is not the purpose and intention of the body that we have. It's always to be fruitful and to multiply. Our bodies are tools. The communities that we're part of are tools in which we have been given to go out and transform to the ends of the earth. If all it was about is, hey, let's go and get a church where we deeply love each other and we look good. Look at us. Look at how much we love each other here. All we're doing is posting Instagram pics of how good our church body looks. If all we've got is a really loving family where we deeply care for one another, and all we do with that is just say, hey, look at us, we're the perfect family. We've just got our perfect Instagram bodies now of our perfect family and what it looks like. That's never the intention. It's always to give in and of itself and bring life everywhere that it goes. We're never intended just to stay and to settle and to look after and to keep for ourselves. We're always called to be those that go beyond ourselves and give freely, because freely we've received, freely we give. All that we've received of the love of Christ in our heart that has now caused us to be healthy and strong is now for the purpose of being fruitful and multiplying to the ends of the earth. See, I mentioned this book last week, the Alan Scott book, Scattered Servants, and I'm going to read you an extract from it this week. It's at the very beginning. Now, I always get worried when people read bits from the beginnings of books, because then I think, well, hang on a minute, did you read the end of the book, or did you just read that good quote in page 1? And so I can assure you, look, I've got pages folded towards the end of the book as well. Look, they are page 200. I've still got a page folded there as well. But this is just a great summary, and I want it to get under your skin a little bit, because I'd massively encourage you to read it. This guy, part of the Vineyard movement, Alan Scott, now over in Anaheim in California. And actually, because he's writing to an American context broadly, he'll use this phrase of unleash the church for your city. I'm very aware that where we are is a town. And so it seems weird talking about bring life to the city and everywhere that you go. So I hope you don't mind, Alan, and I hope you don't mind if you ever listen to this preach. I'd be very honoured if you do. But if you ever listen to it, I'm going to just replace where you've wrote the word city, and I'm just going to include the word Eastbourne. If that's okay, I'm just going to talk about our town. It's a town that we live in, a town that our church is based in. It's predominantly, I know you might be watching online and all over, wherever you are watching this. So grateful for you being in, but ultimately this is our home, this is our town. And so I just want to read a little bit into this, and hopefully it spurs you to maybe read a bit from this book as well, or maybe grab yourself a copy and read it. This is a book about the church loving the city, I'm going to say Eastbourne, back to life. It's about unleashing the church to bring life to Eastbourne. It reminds us that Eastbourne is not hard to reach. They are just hard to reach when we stay in our buildings. Maybe this is why it resonated to me, because I was in lockdown and I wasn't allowed in this building. We weren't allowed to meet here. So maybe it was like perfect acoustics for some of this truth to resonate in my heart. But anyway, indeed, it's impossible to reach our cities through better church services. While gathered environments, such as Sunday services and small groups, they can grow the church, only scattered servants bring life to broken cities. Only scattered servants will bring life to a broken Eastbourne. It's time to unlock a kingdom identity, a kingdom authority, a kingdom ministry. It's time to unleash the power of everyone, said this last week, everywhere, every day, so that the church begins to fill every town, every city, every industry, every family with the beauty and story of Christ. If that's your hunger, I invite you to take the next step into this story. Join God on the journey of bringing life to your town. Demonstrate the power of God beyond the building. Discover the dreams God has put in your heart for the sake of Eastbourne. Move on in your faith and move out in God's favour. Understand your identity, unlock your authority, develop a faith that isn't strong enough to survive culture. Man, Rich is next to me, I know you love this phrase. Develop a faith that isn't strong enough to survive culture, but that is bold enough to transform it. The dream of God over your life is not that you become a believer and help out the local church. The dream of God over your life is that you come alive in his presence, beating heart for him. You bring life to every environment, spilling contagiously hope into hurting humanity. Man, this guy knows how to write. And as you read this book, my prayer is that you would be awakened to dream in partnership with God over your own town, in ways you've not dreamed before, in ways that renew culture and birth hope in the heart of every city beyond the walls of every church. Because the next great move of God is not a movement in the church, but a movement of the church. Wow, man. Like I said, Alan Scott knows how to write. And it's true. We don't just long to be a church that looks good and is static in our buildings and in our locations where we are. We long to be a body, an army on the move. A group of people who deeply love Jesus, who deeply love one another, and who go to serve and to love and to care and to fix and to shape and to influence and to be part of and to bring the best of all we are and all that we do into every environment in which we meet. See, we want to bring life and bear fruit. That has always been God's intention for his people. I'll tell you what, Alan Scott did not invent that idea. It's always God's intention from the very beginning. Genesis 1, verse 26 to 28, God said this: "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over the livestock and over all the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." God's intention has always been to go out and to fill and to populate and to shape and to influence and to care and to bring dominion, to bring his rule and reign, to be image bearers of God. That is a ridiculous idea. You and me bear the image of God in all that we do. We represent God in every circumstance and situation that we walk into. We're images of God. We're those who display his image to all of creation. We are called to occupy and to fill the earth, to bear the image of our Creator and bring dominion throughout all of creation, over creation through his people. We long to represent something of the Creator God that has made us in his image and display it for all of the world to see. And not just for them to be seen, but to be blessed by it. To be blessed by the encounter they have with the people of God, because we're not representing something of ourselves, we're giving something of him. He's first loved us. That's what we heard week 1. We said actually because God has first loved us, we are now called to be loving towards others. See, we are called to be those who bring about this, and this was written to them in the Garden of Eden. Eden just is a place in which God's Spirit dwells amongst his people. It's a place in which God's rule and dominion over all the earth is shown and expressed. And so in the fall, actually, when they're cast out of Eden, it's then actually, it's not like the plan changed and said, we're not going to bother with that plan anymore. What does God do? He calls Abraham. He says to Abraham, right, you're my image bearer. Come on, be a blessing to the ends of the earth. All the nations of the earth are going to be blessed by you and your family. Because as you go, you're going to represent something of me as an image bearer of God's. Something of your deep, devoted relationship with me is now going to be expressed as a blessing towards the ends of the earth in all that we do. See, that has always been the plan, to restore Eden, to restore this place in which God's rule and dominion and authority causes the ends of the earth to be blessed and restored and made new. It's the gospel hope that we talked about in, the resurrection life stuff that we did in the summer. That idea that actually God is coming to make all things new, to restore his dwelling place with his people. And how does he long to do that now? Through us as image bearers of the invisible God in all that we do. That's always been God's plan. To bless the end of the earth through you and through me. Man, I know I'm on a bit of a book fest, but this book just blessed my socks off last year, 2019. Andy McCulloch's book, Global Humility. It just absolutely blessed my socks off. I've read it. I would not want to lend this to anyone because I would not want to lose it, because I scribbled all over it. Just loved reading it. So good for my soul. Just the truths that I read just resonated inside of me. And it was stories like this. Andy would start writing about Babel. Tower of Babel building so that man can make a name for himself. And what does God do? He scatters the people and he says, go. You're never intended just to congregate and be in one place to make a name for yourself. You were always called to be those that were scattered to the ends of the earth, to go and be a blessing to everyone that you meet. Jonah. What is he doing? Jonah picks out a prophet, and for the very first time he says, go to another nation. Go and speak to Nineveh. Go and tell them the truth of who I am and all I've done. Go and give them an opportunity to respond to my love and grace and mercy. What does Jonah do? No, I want to stay. I'm happy. I'm very ethnocentric. I just want to stay with my community for my people. He deeply cared about Israel. He didn't care about Nineveh. What did God say? He said, go. You're never intended just to be here and stay and settle for the good of yourselves. You're always called to go out and be a blessing to the others that are not yet here. What did Jesus say? Not Jesus changed tacks on those things either. Jesus, the Great Commission, he says, go and make disciples in the ends of the earth. In Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria. The ends of the earth is like slowly this area just gaining size and size and size of where they're called to go and be. See, a healthy beating heart is the first and foremost response to the Christian life. A heart that responds to God and a deep devotion towards him. That then supplies this life-giving blood to the rest of their body, and healthy bodies are fruitful and multiply. They go and they are called to transform the world. Jesus calls us to make disciples. He calls us to release rivers of living, life-giving water from the spring of life that never runs dry. He says, you've received from me, and this is a well that never runs dry. You don't have to worry about, hang on a minute, what if I've only got enough for myself? Jesus says, I am a spring of living water that never runs dry. It's enough for all who would choose to believe. So take it. Freely you've received, freely give. Take it, be a river of my goodness and grace and mercy. Not a reservoir, not something that you just stock hold of, build down at the end and say, I'm just a bit worried that I'm not going to have enough of God's goodness and love and grace and mercy towards me, so I better just hold on to it in case it trickles out of my hands. No, we're called to break the reservoirs, to open the dams, and to allow the river of life to flow to all that we would meet, to bring life to the ends of the earth. See, Andy, the author of this book, just recently, and I know I encouraged a few of you to read last year, I'd still say get a copy of this book and read it. But Andy started to do another project, which is called Margins to Mike. And Margins to Mike was really an opportunity. It's sort of 8 YouTube videos. You can find it by searching Margins to Mike on YouTube, and I'm sure we might be able to edit in a little link to it here so you can see it. But it's a bunch of YouTube videos of basically marginal voices on the margins of our communities from across the globe speaking about the truth of the gospel in their context and in their lives. See, the danger is so often, we live in Eastbourne, south coast of Britain. We listen to voices that sound and look like us very often. And actually this whole project is about saying, listen to people who don't sound like you, listen to people who don't always look like you, and listen to the truth of the gospel. The same gospel that they hear and receive is the same gospel that we preach and proclaim here today in Eastbourne. You know, we come to the same one who brings life and gives life to all, but actually there's a richness in the diversity in which we bring to one another in these things. So I just want to play you the trailer for these little Margin to Mike videos, and I would massively encourage you, off the back of this, watch some of those videos. Watch each and they will be a huge blessing to you. I'd encourage you to do so. So let's just watch this trailer now and be blessed if you go and watch a few more of those that are on the YouTube channel.
The Margins to Mike project brings together voices from across our New Frontiers family and from across the world. Margins to Mike is a series of 8 videos with people speaking from Serbia.
I started dreaming about the beautiful, bright church, city on a hill that everybody can see and everybody can love.
Dubai.
To do these holiday jobs where I'd work when everyone is just having fun, relaxing over holidays. I'll be working to try and raise some money so that I can pay for my studies.
New Zealand.
And to see more Māori come through into Christianity, which is really exciting. I think it was estimated at one point that over 60% of the Māori population were attending church.
Turkey.
We're all dealing with a form of culture shock as we try to come to terms with a new life in which so many things have changed all at once.
Armenia.
We have to understand that for Middle East people, social group is more important than individual.
South Africa.
Number one, that being black or white still matters. We could say that this is all identity politics, but to use Daniel Aiken's words, there is an evil organized system that benefits whites through exploiting blacks.
The UK.
Had been a Christian for 26 years, and that was the first time that I saw someone like me.
And movements must listen to their margins. Yet, so often what happens is movements tend to listen more to the people in the center, the people with bigger platform that speak in a more refined idiom, that speak in a way that just reinforces the narrative that we've already come to love and trust, rather than allowing ourselves to be challenged by prophetic voices from outside of that narrative. We must listen to them. They are the newest frontiers, if you like, of New Frontiers. Listening is an art. Position yourself to be challenged. Be open to the Holy Spirit speaking to you through them. Tune in past maybe difficult accents or ways of speaking that you're not used to, or even subjects that you wouldn't normally wrestle with. You know, if it matters to your brother and sister, then it must matter to you. Listening is an art. Let's listen to the margins.
That the church is not just one demographic, that the church is not just one group of people. She is not just men. She is not just women. She is not just single people. She is not just married people. She is not just one ethnic group. She is not just one academic level. She is not just one demographic. She is beautiful and radiant because she is us together, united, one body in Christ.
I got tunnel vision. I'm on a mission. We ain't stopping now. Sing it louder.
Okay, so you've just watched the Margins to Mike trailer, and this is an outworking of a love for Jesus. How beautiful is it just to hear what the church is called to be and church called to look like? And this outworking of a love for Jesus that causes people to move, to go, to take the good news of the gospel into every circumstance and environment that they go into. So examples I'm massively aware of. You know, friends of mine that I know that moved from East Grinstead, young family, moved to Berlin, start a church plant in Berlin. We spoke about it here as a church a number of times. We want to pray for them, continue to pray for Pete and Sarah and the team that are out there at Welcome Church in Berlin. Why do they do that? Because it comes out of a deep love for Christ, a deep love for others, which says this can't be about me just staying safe and comfortable. I must go into all that God has called me to do. It's why people start schools in Zimbabwe and travel to Zim to start chicken projects, to bless rural communities in another continent. Why? Because of a deep love for Jesus and a deep love for other, which causes us to go, to take the good news of the gospel into every environment that we meet. It's why there's people in this church that have emigrated to other countries and adopted children from other nations in order to bring them into their family. Why? Because of a deep love for Jesus that expresses itself in a love for others and says, I can't just stay and settle for my own safety and security and comfort, but I must go to the ends of the earth. You see, love always gives life. It does. Jesus, because of his great love for us, gave life to all who would choose to believe. And life flows through us as the people of God to the ends of the earth. It's always been his plan and his intention to work through his people. You and me, rivers of the grace and kindness and mercy of God into every circumstance. So let's just finish on this. We begin as we love Jesus every day. Don't lose that metronome. Love him every day in all that you do. Out of that, this love affects and should affect, like 1 John that we read, our local communities and everyone that we meet. And from here, it goes and reaches the ends of the earth everywhere that we would dwell. Where did this little series of talks start a few weeks back? Well, it started in 1 Corinthians 13. Started on this idea of love. I sung some songs pretty badly to you, and then I read a passage from 1 Corinthians 13. And the way that it lands, Paul says this in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 13. So now faith, hope, and love remain. These three. But the greatest of these is love. God is love. Let's sing.
Justice, Savior to all, came to rescue the weak and the poor, chose to serve and not be served. Jesus, you have called us, freely we've received now. Freely we will give, we must go, live to feed the hungry, stand beside the broken, we must go, stepping forwards, keep us from just singing, move us into action, we must go. Justly every day, loving mercy in every way, walking humbly before you, God. Jesus, you have called us, freely we've received now, freely must go, live to feed the hungry, stand beside the broken, we must go, stepping forwards, keep us from just singing, move us into action, we must go. Send us out, fill us stand beside the broken. We must go, stepping forwards, keep us from just singing, move us into action. We must go, yes, we must go.